The Existential Crisis Hotline. The Existential Crisis Hotline. The Existential Crisis Hotline. The Existential Crisis Hotline. The Existential Crisis Hotline.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Wednesday night. Got kind of a weird stream tonight. Weird because there's lots of weird stuff going on. And a few things caught my eye on social media today, so I thought I'd share those with you. First up, really strange. I don't know. Maybe we'll get to the bottom of this. But this guy, 22-year-old. No, the student was 22. 22-year-old flight student. I'll just show you. 22-year-old flight student was forced to land her plane alone after her flight instructor organized his belongings, told her, "You know what to do, keep moving forward," and jumped from the plane to his death. What? See what I mean by weird? Somebody asked Grok if there's any more details. Grok said this happened on July 4th near Argentina. Oh, weird. So this guy, he's 42. Wow, same age as me. Told the student, well, he already read that part. Removed his headset and seatbelt, gathered items, opened the door, and jumped without a parachute. His body was found in a field. Now, obviously, I don't know exactly what's going on there, but I can speculate. Of course I can speculate. Anyone can speculate. But you have to wonder, was he, delusional? Did he think he was going somewhere? I don't mean that, sarcastically. I mean, maybe he literally was delusional. He thought he was going to fly away or go to another dimension. I don't know. But it's weird. It says it's being investigated as a suspected suicide. Let me move closer to my mic. I've got my AC on. Hopefully that's not interfering too much. Investigated as a suspected suicide. Apparently he received neuropsychiatric treatment. His father had mentioned a rough patch. Colleagues said he seemed normal and cheerful beforehand with no warning signs. Of course they're going to say that. They're not going to say, "Oh yeah, there was warning signs, but I didn't say anything." Somebody down in the comments said he was pushed. I mean, that is a possibility. Why aren't they investigating that? Maybe he got pushed out. But it's weird. I saw somewhere else it said that he took his cell phone with him. It's so weird. People losing their minds. Maybe more information will come out. There was also another weird thing that happened either yesterday or today. I'm not sure exactly when. We'll find out. But there's this influencer, Giga Chad, named Connor Murphy. I don't know if you ever heard of him. I never really heard of him before, but he's an influencer on Instagram and social media. And apparently he died. It says American fitness influencer drowns in Samut Prakan, which I'm guessing is in Thailand or something. That's what it sounds like to me. Bangkok Post. Yeah, probably Thailand. I want to look at this because it's fascinating. Paint is seen splattered throughout the 22 million baht luxury home that YouTube celebrity Connor Murphy, 32, had rented for 35,000 baht a month. I wonder what the exchange rate is. 22 million baht. Wow. That's weird. I guess that's a key word now. It just popped up with the right currency. $656,000 gets you a luxury home in Thailand. Wow. These ads are crazy. How our liver warns us that it is overlooked. They've got a girl with like short ass shorts with her butt hanging out, farting, with an American flag on her ass. Thanks. Thanks, Bangkok Post. Let's see. 32-year-old American fitness influencer drowned on Tuesday evening. Oh, let me put my monitor back over here. I actually rearranged things a little bit so I could kind of look more here than way over there. He jumped into a lake at a housing estate in Samut Prakan province, where police also found he had vandalized his rented luxury house. I like the... Is this AI stuff? I'm going to click on that in a second. I bet it's just like AI. Isn't that weird though? Like you can like interact with a news article now because of AI. It's so strange. Let me turn this a little bit. Hold on one second, guys. There we go. The man reportedly became frenzied when he arrived in a vehicle in front of the estate in Bang Phli district, said, I'm assuming that means police colonel, Virafong Rubsue. These names are crazy. He's identified as Connor Murphy, a Texas-born fitness influencer and bodybuilder, a YouTuber with more than 2.3 million followers. He was known for his over-the-top stunts. Okay, I didn't know he was on YouTube. I had looked him up on Instagram. Maybe we can look at that. Murphy was also well known in the Looksmaxxing community, made up of young men who go to extreme lengths to transform their physical appearance. In Murphy's case, it was a jawline that attracted attention after it underwent a radical change over a short time. Oh, he's from Austin. Wow. Witnesses, including a security guard and an employee at the housing estate, which was not named, recounted disturbing behavior prior to the man's frenzied dash into the water. The guard told police that Murphy had returned to the neighborhood in a hired vehicle, reportedly tried to give the driver 1,000 baht, but the driver refused to accept the money after noticing his unusual behavior. How much is 1,000 baht? $30. That seems like normal, but I guess that's a lot there. What's the average income? What is the average income in Thailand? The average monthly income in Thailand is approximately 15,000 baht, about 470 USD, with the annual gross average salary sitting at 188,400 baht, 5,645 USD. Most professionals require around 15,000 to 50,000 per month to live. So that'd be about a little bit more like 2,500, I guess, USD to live comfortably. Wow. Income levels drop significantly outside major metropolitan areas. The statutory minimum is about 400 baht per day, which would be, let's see, wow, not very much. 15,000 is almost $500 per day. What's 15,000 divided by 400? It's like basically $3 a day or something like that. Corporate salaries. Typical office workers, such as governmental, hospital, administrative staff, commonly earn around 16,000 baht. So, yeah, probably about $500 or so per month. So, like 500 to 700 per month. Wow. Cost of living for expats. Reject. I don't want. You can't have my cookies. Nestled in the heart of Southeast Asia, Thailand offers expats a vibrant and affordable modern lifestyle in a country chock full of mountains and national parks. Previously known as Siam, the country changed its name in 1939 to become Thailand, meaning land of the free. It's home to around 41,000 British expats and more than 2.5 million foreign nationals. Average living cost, single person per month. Average living cost for family for 4 months is about $2,200 in Bangkok. The good news is that as an expat in Thailand, you can expect to earn a fairly decent wage. So, as an expat, average salary in Thailand. Why is this saying so different? Is that just for expats? Doctors earn about $6,000 per month. $6,700 per month. A Thai person working in executive and managerial positions earns about 131,000 baht, so that's like basically half. So about 3,000 a month. Dang. Can you imagine in the US? So how is it they have a modern lifestyle and it only costs you a couple thousand a month? But in America, you can barely get by on 10,000 a month. I mean, in terms of living comfortably, right? I think I saw something recently that said to live comfortably in most American cities, it's like 15,000 a month or something. Why is that? Okay. Weird. Oh, this is cool. A liter of milk costs $1.63 in US. Wait, hold on. Let me just double check this. 470 baht to USD. $14. So they're making 14 bucks a day on average, according to this cost of living one. Right? No, according to that. According to the AI. Why is it so contradictory? Although I guess it's not actually, because it said it was like 100,000, 131,000 a year, but that's in their currency. A loaf of bread is $1.33. 12 eggs, $1.70. 1 gram of chicken fillets, $2.35. 1 kilogram, yeah. Wow. Effects of the cost of living crisis. What? The cost of living in Thailand has increased dramatically since February 2022 as a result of the worldwide cost of living crisis and the war between Russia and Ukraine. The country's usually stable inflation rate increased to usually between 1 and 3% has increased to 7.9 by August 2022. Inflation leaving Thais with less buying power. The war in Ukraine has sent shockwaves through the world. impact on global exports of food, metals, and most significantly oil. Thailand's taken a tourism hit. Russian tourists, ordinarily one of Thailand's biggest European cohorts. Almost 23% of all European visitors are from Russia to Thailand, falling to just 8.5%. As a result of this decline in Russian tourism, they estimated a loss of at least 1.3 billion US dollars, which would be like a lot in their currency. Thailand's not relying on importing Russian energy. 55% of total crude oil comes from the Middle East. Putting them in a healthy position. Well, capped the price of diesel at 98 US cents per liter. How many liters are in a gallon? .3 3.7. That sounds relatively the same as in the US. What is the average cost per gallon of diesel in Texas? Wow, it knows. It says if you're located in Texas, just if you are. I don't know if you are, but if you are, about 4. Yeah, so it's not really that much different. I mean, it's not the same, but it's a little bit less, I guess, but pretty much the same. Well, let's see. Let me do a little calculation. That times 3.7 okay, so it's about like $3.60 a gallon for diesel. Rent in Thailand is on average 56% lower than UK, meaning it's far easier for Westerners to live a luxurious lifestyle on a budget. Look at this. A three bedroom inside the city center is $2,000 a month. What is a 3-bedroom apartment in New York City? 4 to 10,000. Oh wait, yeah, 3 bedrooms, yeah. Manhattan, 7 to 8,000. Brooklyn, Queens, 35 to 6,000 per month. Wow. I mean, we had like a pretty nice. It was like it was a 2-story. 1, 2, 3, 4 bedroom. 4 bedroom, 2 bath, with a really big backyard when we were in Houston, and it was like maybe $1,800 a month, but this was like back pre-COVID. You're not allowed to own land in Thailand. Interesting. Foreigners are not allowed to own more than 40% of the total units in an apartment block. There's a loophole. It's possible to buy property in Thailand for foreigners if you own a Thai limited company that has mixed foreign Thai ownership. Huh. Basic electricity, heating, cooling, and water for a 915 square foot apartment is about $63. So, okay, let's go back to this Connor Murphy thing. The man then approached a resident's passing car and knocked on the window asking for a ride to the estate. The guard said he shouted to the driver not to pick him up. The man became agitated. He shouted loudly, rolled around on the pavement, and raised his hands as if praying. When police officers arrived, Murphy suddenly ran and jumped into the lake, prompting police to request backup and rescue personnel as the situation escalated. A video recorded by the estate employee showed the American behaving erratically for unknown reasons. He continued swimming until he appeared exhausted before disappearing beneath the water. They recovered his body about 20 meters from the shore. Dude. He like trashed the... What is that? Is that a power bank for like doing electronics? Looks like one of those power banks. Quick charge. Voltages. What was he like, doing electronics? It's got paint everywhere. The homeowner, identified as Ms. View, was devastated after seeing the condition of the house, saying she cherished the lakeside residence that was valued around 22 million baht. The girlfriend said the damage inside the house occurred overnight while she was asleep in her room while he was awake. They'd been together about 3 years, but spent much of that time living apart due to relationship difficulties. They had resumed living together less than 3 months ago. Apparently, he appeared completely normal before the incident. He had never shown similar behavior or experienced any known mental health problems. She had never seen him use any drugs. They found 2 unused syringes and several unidentified white pills. Weird, huh? Here's his Instagram. It's kind of funny, weird stuff. What the hell?
We're making a movie.
What the hell? I gotta see this one.
His cock, and then you taste my balls. And then she comes.
Huh?
Like I'm sucking a cock. No, I'm sucking like a lady's cock.
No, everyone
Just pass through like a fairy.
like a bird. Okay, bye-bye. Okay. What, is it going? Action. Wait, you want a knife? No, I can't hear.
I don't know what they're doing.
Riding around this carousel, if you catch my drift. Riding around this wagon wheel, she took me for a spin. Riding around this carousel, getting dizzy till we're sick. Love is like a circle, there's no easy way to end.
wonder if these are like native Thai women that he's like hired. I mean, I don't want to make accusations or anything, but okay. Austin's like, what the hell did I just walk into here? Just looking at videos of this guy who just went crazy and drowned himself in a lake in Thailand. He's some kind of like fitness influencer. Makes weird stuff. Hold on, someone's knocking on my door. I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. Okay. So, yeah. Weird. I wonder what his YouTube is like. Failing to enlighten my parents 6 years ago. These are all kind of old, though. Was he popular on YouTube? God, aliens, you. What is God? A non-religious explanation. 5 years ago.
Greetings! Quite the video we have here. What is God? Quite the question, huh? It really is the question. If God even exists. If not, what is reality? What is the universe? Well, it is all the same thing. So what is God? Where even to begin? What is not God? Nothing is not God. Nothing also is God. It's pretty paradoxical, but I will explain it in ways that you can partially understand. So, where to begin? Well, spoiler alert, I'm God! Ooh, I felt that. You just got offended, didn't you? Why did you just get so offended? Really dig down. Deeply. Why would you get so offended by that? Don't worry. Don't worry. You're God too. It's all good. The universe is actually perfect. You just can't see its perfection. It's the essence of God. Why would God create anything that isn't perfect if God is infinitely intelligent? So how can we begin to describe what God is? Well, first of all, whatever ideas you have about what God is, throw those in the trash. It's not God. Why isn't it God? Well, it simply can't be God. You see, God is infinite. By definition, really.
Well, hold on. That's an idea. Right? That's an idea. That God is infinite. That's an idea that you should throw in the trash. The fact that God would only make things perfect, throw it in the trash. I think if you want to start with the premise that you're God, okay, you can do that. But then you have to be objective and self-honest about everything that actually exists. You can't just say, I am God, and you are God, and God is infinite and perfect. Well, that's obviously not true. I'm not infinite. Look around at the world. This is the world that you and I are in. It is not perfect. I mean, I guess it depends on how you define perfect. Why would God create something that's not perfect? Because God's fucking retarded. Because God is an abuser. God would be all those things too.
Anyone would agree. God must be infinite, all-powerful, omnipotent. Well, if God is truly infinite, how could you know what God is with a finite mind? How could finite thoughts and concepts know what God is?
You couldn't.
Well, they can't.
Yeah.
So you have this idea of God in your mind.
But that's why you couldn't know it's infinite either. It's a self-defeating argument. If with your finite mind, you're making a rational argument that if it's infinite, you can't know it, but that means you can't know it's infinite either. You can't know anything about it.
And it is not God. This is where atheists fall into the trap. Atheists. Blasphemy! Blasphemy! Atheists deny a concept that doesn't even exist. See, atheists deny God, but they don't know what God is.
Well, no one does.
They have this finite concept in their mind that they're denying. They're creating their own thing to deny. It's actual insanity.
Well, I'm not an atheist, but I could argue as an atheist. You're not denying that there's a finite God. You're not denying that there's an infinite God.
It's the same thing as saying, I don't believe in a flying spaghetti monster, but I created it. I'm thinking of it in my mind. It doesn't, like what? It makes no sense. You can't deny a God that you don't know what it is. But here's the problem, is that when you do know God, you can't deny God. God is an experience. God is an intimate experience.
Cheia de tesão, eu vou te fuder com amor. Menalida safadinha,
Because you are God. Everyone is God. In fact, there is no way to know God. There is really only a way to be God, to recognize the fact that you are God. Stop. See, I already hear you getting offended. You're like, I am not God. God is some mystical thing in the sky. Stop thinking about it like that, okay? I'll tell you what God is. Now, words can't do it justice, obviously. But I think that the best way to describe what God is, the best way that I can think of to explain it to the average person in the material world, is that God is infinite imagination. God is infinite imagination. Think about what imagination means to you, okay? So imagine something right now. Imagine you frolicking through a meadow, seeing a cow, going petting the cow, okay? You're frolicking through the meadow, going and you're petting this cow. Now, pay attention to how you're imagining that, right? Now, you have this finite imagination. You can kind of, see the picture, see the cow. The picture isn't very clear. It kind of comes and goes. You can't focus it in perfectly. You can't keep it there, right? It's not as clear as your vision. It's somehow sort of in your visual field, maybe. Like, where do even thoughts appear? I don't know. So you're imagining this, right? Now imagine the cow bites you. Ah! You can kind of imagine the pain, but you can't really feel the pain. So you see, that's imagination. But it's a finite. This is the finite imagination of a human, right? Okay? Now, imagine the same concept of imagination, but infinite. Absolutely infinite. Think if you, the small self that you think you are, the ego, think if you somehow access an infinite imagination. Now this is the thing, because you don't know what infinity really means. But try your best. Infinite imagination. Imagine what you could imagine with infinite imagination. Well, that's what you're doing right now. Your imagination is just so powerful that you made yourself forget that you were imagining. That's how powerful the imagination is. The imagination wouldn't be so powerful if it didn't seem so real. So that's what you are. You're a giant mind. Connor, where's this mind? It doesn't have to be anywhere. You're caught in the materialist paradigm, which is inside the mind. You think that everything has to have like a base, you know? Oh, the mind must be in the brain. No, 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 no. Just think of a mind. A mind with no base. It's just a mind appearing in nowhere. It's nothingness, but nothingness with infinite potential. That's what God is. It's where you get the Buddhist concept of nothingness. Because there's nothing there at its core, but yet it has infinite potential to manifest whatever its heart desires. Emptiness, consciousness, infinity, God, infinite intelligence, infinite imagination. That's what God is. We're all a part of it. We're all in it. We're all in this giant mind. There's only one of this giant mind. There only can be one. There can be nothing outside the giant mind, because then if there was something outside the giant mind, that would just be a bigger mind. You see? Like, there has to be an end. There has to be a base. You're wondering, oh, it's all material, you know, we know, like the Big Bang. Well, what is the construct in which the Big Bang is held? You see? Oh, empty space. Where is that empty space held? You see how eventually, even through this philosophical thinking, deep contemplation, you realize the end game, it has to just be a giant mind. Now, this is a great way to think about it, and this will help lead you to awakening, getting this concept in your mind. Now, you have to experience this on an experiential level, because you still don't know what the hell I'm talking about. So you do have to experience this. But there might come a point in time where it seems lonely. You're really getting this, and you're realizing, whoa, I'm the only entity in existence. There is only this giant mind in which I am. Well, that will fade, because everything is so unreal, because it simply is imagined by this giant mind of God. Yet, it's so real, because it has infinite power, so it can make it as real as it wants. As you progress in your spiritual awakening, reality will it'll get realer, and it'll get more unreal. God's a giant paradox. Get comfortable with paradoxes, because paradox is truth. Makes sense. It has to be. Universe, reality, it's a giant paradox. That's why it can't be understood conceptually. It's something you have to experience to really know, to really feel, to really grasp and experience what a giant paradox is. So yeah, that's what God is. And it's something that you can experience in this lifetime. You can truly know God. How do you do it? How do you know God? Well, many ways. In fact, some people don't have to do anything. All they have to do is be suffering intensely, right, throughout their normal life, like Eckhart Tolle, right? He was suicidal, and then all of a sudden, boom, you realize God. But for most of you, you have to do some deep spiritual work. Meditation, contemplation. Certain plant substances that I will talk about on my Patreon, but don't want to get demonetized here because I want to reach this to as many people as possible. There are a lot of ways to find God. Many ancient spiritual practices. But the first step is just the intellectual understanding that there is one. And eventually, whether it be in this lifetime or the next, you will know God. That's why it's designed this way. It's perfection. You couldn't know how incredible it feels to be one, unity, togetherness. You wouldn't know what that feels like if at first you didn't feel separate. This is why we had to forget that we are God in order to really experience what God is. It's the nature of dualities in this world. Can't have up without down, right without wrong, good without bad. You can't have unity without separateness. It's an incredible design. You'll find everything in the universe is absolutely utter perfection. Utter perfection, you just have to see it. Every little mistake in reality, every little imperfection, they're not mistakes, they're not imperfections. It's a strategic, intelligent design to give you the most perfect experience in all of infinity. That's what you're experiencing right now. You just don't see it, but you will.
World Health Organization report warns that 1 in 5 people will develop cancer, and the disease will affect 92% of people. I'm not sure what it means by that. Maybe like because everybody will know somebody who has cancer? The CEO of the biggest electricity company in the US is warning that blackouts could hit next year as AI and data centers drive up electricity demand and strain the grid. Exelon's CEO Calvin Butler told the Financial Times that Americans could absolutely lose power as soon as 2027. He says that last winter his company nearly limited service for 400,000 customers during extreme cold. Parley Market's reporting that Meta is reportedly testing AI glasses that could capture your entire day by continuously taking pictures and recording audio. Oh, whoopee. Oh, joyous day. Oh, wondrous, joyous day. Americans were once members of a proudly literate society, but today reading has declined across age groups, gender, and education levels. Here's an excerpt. In 2024, in a national test, just 35% of high school seniors were proficient at skills such as analyzing complex fictional themes and evaluating the effectiveness of an author's argument. About the same number scored below basic, meaning that they may struggle to draw conclusions from concepts explicitly included in a text, or to use context clues to determine the meaning of an unknown word. Adult literacy scores have also dropped. Nearly 30% of American adults cannot paraphrase or make inferences from a multi-page text. In 2017, that number was less than 20%. That's not good.
Remember, everything is in the reverse. That means, if it's written it was the fall of man, what does it mean? It's not the fall of man. It's the fall of God. Everything is in the reverse. You start studying every single thing that's written here in this reality, and you reverse it, you're going to start finding out what's going on. So, the fall of God is the creation of man in the image and likeness of God. And man exists as what? As a name, as words that is apparently alive, which is a living word.
So, in other words, God became man. God fell and became man. There is no more God. And the idea that there's still a God there, this is the point I think that Bernard's getting across here. So like this idea that like we're all God, everybody, and we're all infinite actually, and it's an imagination. No, maybe it was that way at one point, but then God fell. God created himself as something less than what he was. And that's created consequence.
You are the living word. You read from the living word, the holy books, that tell you all about God. What is it really telling you? It's telling you all about you. You are the gods that's fallen. The question is how? How did you manage to fall and in that process created yourself as only pictures, images and likenesses, nothing real? So, if it says you're the image and likeness of God, I mean, what does it say? That you are nothing like God. You're not the same. You've replicated all of it. Everything. And you have no way of getting it back. Ever. I'll explain to you why. Because understand that if you look at history that is available to be studied, you'll notice it started suddenly. When Earth was first considered as the point where creation could have become something different, substantial.
And for context on that point, go back and listen to God in Ascension, where he explains that whole process.
In the universe that you can call the creator gods saw an opportunity. That opportunity was simplistic. They had a problem. The substance with which they were working, which was earth, they did not understand. It was behaving differently to anything they have worked with up to that moment. So they needed to do a lot of research, which they did over a long period of time. The research was done by placing beings into various forms that was designed from the earth, you would call bodies today, and to observe what they respond to and how their responses could be managed. So by the time the story of Jesus is said to have happened, and the point that was shared then, that angel gods can be seen as one of the primary starting points, because at that stage already, which is 2,000 years ago, man was already trapped. Means all the gods were already trapped as pictures and unable to get out. Now, how did this happen? Initially in the research,
Trapped as a picture because you're basically plugged into a mind consciousness system where you don't really know who you really are, and you forgot what happened before you were born, and when you die, you're stuck right back into it constantly. And then you believe all these stories you're told when you're on Earth that are purely designed to control your perception and your understanding of things, so you never really understand what's happening.
in which was created the male and the female form, the separation that took place. The consideration was to have a look what happens. In the interaction between the male and the female, interdimensionally was observed the creation of energy. An energy that you experience when you're having sex, for instance, and so on, but you don't see where it goes somewhere. That energy was, for instance, as an example, your energy that is coming from sex, anger, any form of conflict or friction between two parts of the earth as living beings, male and female, or even male and male, or female and female, but any point of interaction that brings friction in some way would create in that process an energy. This energy then was taken and studied and considered, and it was utilized. It was amazing what could be done with this energy in the realm that you are not in now, or at the other side. So they found this energy, they could do with it many things. So with it was created the heavens and the...
I mean, can it be that simple? That we're just here following a program that creates conflict to draw energy out of physical reality so that somebody else can basically use it to create whatever they want? Can it be that simple? And that all the meaning that you find in your life is just an illusion because you're really just here to suck energy out of reality and you haven't questioned any of it. And even in the context of your life, just look at your life. Like, you can't see the other part. Like he said, the part that you can't see, the hereafter, the afterlife, the other dimensions. You can't see it. So you can't know, right? You can't, oh, how do I know? But just be self-honest about your life. It's constantly moving from one conflict to another conflict. And all this bullshit about God as an experience, that's just to keep you preoccupied so you never actually question, if there was a God, would God play this kind of game with us? If God really was infinite, would it want to experience poverty and suffering and all this bullshit? Like, to think that there's an ultimate infinite God would imply it already fucking knows everything. So why would it need experience for any reason whatsoever? It already has it. It's infinite. No experience could add anything to it. So it's like this very small vision of what life is, which is just experience, and then you're projecting that onto God as if that's what God would want, so you can justify doing that yourself. That's all this is. You know? I mean, like, this guy's not really fundamentally different than anybody else. Just seeking for an experience. And my point isn't here just to sit here and judge, okay, look how stupid this guy is. I'm just saying, look where this ends. How many people would love to have been this guy? He's having fun. He's in Thailand. He's muscular. He's got, like, women around him. He's popular. Look, he's got millions of views on his posts. Living the life, right? Then he ends up going crazy. Why? Why? How do you go from this?
Because things only get better. That's the nature of the universe. Like the stock market, ups and downs, but it's always on the uptrend. That's how it has to be. Do you see how that's the nature of our being? Is that we need to be progressing towards something? If something is static, if it's stagnant, it doesn't sit well with us. It's the nature of impermanence. That's why things are constantly changing. And you don't like that, right? Because you're this ego, and this ego, it's this artificial entity. It doesn't even really exist. It's this mental construct. But
it's a mental construct, but it doesn't exist. But he just said God is just a mind. Maybe that's what doesn't exist. And this is really the point to look at, is if we're assuming that there's a God out there that even if it's us and it's just a mind and it's just about experience and it's getting better and progressively better, it's It's the perfect thing that we could believe in that would allow us to not actually look self-honestly about what's going on the earth and take responsibility for it. And again, this guy's not fundamentally different than anybody else. But it's the perfect excuse.
Survives by trying to remain constant. To not give in to the impermanent nature of reality. Once you get past that and embrace it, I know it's hard to do now because you're suffering.
It doesn't explain in this story that he's telling, this one mind that's infinite, why would it suffer? For what reason? Because nobody wants to suffer. Nobody wants to suffer. So you can't say, well, it's like contrast and you don't enjoy the positive unless you get the negative. It's like, that's not true. That's a fucking lie. I can enjoy positive and I can enjoy things and I don't need negative to have that. Think about what you're saying when you say that. It's like you're justifying, because if you look at our system, you have people who they only really ever get the negative side of things so that some few can have the positive stuff. And no one ever really gets all positive, I know that. But would you rather live in the slums or would you rather be a multi-millionaire billionaire? Would you rather have really nice home and great food all the time and vacations, enough money to buy whatever you want? Or would you rather live in the slum? Would you rather live with parents who are alcoholic and beat you? Is that what you'd rather have? You just grow up, your parents are addicted to drugs, they don't give you proper education. That's not explained by, oh, God is just, it's just about experience. No, that's totally denying that there's a system here that we're all participating in. And like even this guy, it's like, look, why does he do social media? Because you got to get famous and you got to make money, right? You got to get attention. It's like trying to enjoy your experience.
But that will end. It will end.
Yes, it will end.
Soul construct. Soul construct was a energetic body, a heavenly body, a body of light, a body of bliss, whatever you want to call it. It was a body of energy that was used as something to be aspired to. So that means it was utilized by getting all the gods in the universe together and say to them, but here we have discovered something more, something you didn't know about. Because the gods itself in the universe, which were you, had an expiry date. You came from planets and you returned to planets. There was no process of birth as it is here on Earth. So, they got it all together and showed an interesting possibility. That was that there could be a new form of creation which would bring an eternal life. And obviously for any being that died, the promise of eternal life was quite inviting. Now obviously you must not understand.
So really think about that for a moment. Consider that you're here because you thought you could have eternal life. You fell into a trap. Jesus never died on the cross, apparently. So says Osho. It looks like he wasn't really doing... I mean, he did a lot of YouTube, it looks like years ago, but not really anything recently. Science proves I'm God. So he was all into God and enlightenment. That's really interesting. Looks like he was, yeah, see, meditation. Eckhart Tolle. So he's into all that meditation, like enlightenment, God, Jesus. Interesting. I wonder if anybody realizes that. Eight years ago. So he was into bodybuilding, enlightenment. Parents kicked me out for being gay.
So I've been Looksmaxxing recently, obviously. And if you're a normie who's been indoctrinated by mainstream ideology, everything you know about Looksmaxxing is probably wrong. Not just from like a physiological standpoint, but even more so from a psychological standpoint. So I'm going to provide some radical, controversial Looksmaxxing perspectives, many of which unfortunately have never been divulged here on YouTube. But first, allow me to totally undermine all credibility of the mainstream's perspectives on Looksmaxxing with quite the ironic illumination of the reality behind the androgenic wig incident. So in one of the most acutely viral streaming moments of all time, a random bully stole formerly the #2 ranked Chad's hat and wig, exposing the fraud that he is. It became such a legendary meme that even the New York Post wrote an article about it. Now, I was recently hanging out with Androgenic here in Thailand for the past month or so, and have gotten to know him quite intimately. And the truth of who he is happens to be much deeper than the surface level critiques of the haters would lead you to believe. And what they are either totally ignorant of or willfully ignoring is that Androgenic totally transparently got both a hair transplant and rhinoplasty here in Thailand. That's why his head is shaved. He's been openly displaying his most looks minimized form all over TikTok, and ironically quite the honorable display of confidence that is essentially the antithesis of the morbidly insecure attention seeker the mainstream portrays him as. I think it's poetic that Ronan, who plays the superficial, self-conscious, Looksmaxxing character Androgenic, is paradoxically one of the most intelligent and secure 25-year-olds that I have ever met. In fact, his story, along with our conversations, helped me solidify my upcoming philosophical views on this burgeoning Looksmaxxing phenomenon, and he also played a significant inspirational role in my quest to become a Looksmaxxer, or at least play a Looksmaxxer. Yeah, look, my jaw, it looks absolutely ridiculous, okay? But in the wise words of the philosopher who goes by the name Mandibulus Zygomitis,
I don't optimize with I max them out.
So on my main YouTube channel and IG and even recently TikTok, I've been playing a parody of an extreme Looksmaxxer, a satirical performance that comically many have been taking completely seriously, just like the androgenic character. Now, to be fair, I am taking Looksmaxxing seriously, but it should be evident that I'm not attempting to sculpt the most harmonious face. I'm optimizing my appearance in an extreme way for a specific role that I wish to play. Why? Well, that's for you to decipher, and this video should provide you some clues. But it's been fun. I'm feeling an exciting sense of progression, eerily similar to when I first started going to the gym. And immersing myself in the Looksmaxxing space has revealed to me some dark but enlightening truths about human psychology. And the androgenic debacle, it made it quite clear that the vast majority of people have utter disregard for the truth and just fabricate narratives purely predicated on what makes them feel good. You know, an insecure Looksmaxxer being brutally exposed, comparatively, it makes them feel better about their own lives. The reality of the situation would make them feel worse. You know, most will choose the feel-good fantasy every single time. The pleasure derived from others' misfortune overpowers any desire for truth-seeking. And the financially motivated mainstream news will continue to pander to their audience's schadenfreude fantasies at all costs. So
That was kind of obvious, though, when that whole thing happened with that androgenic guy, that I kind of assumed it was, like, staged. But there's this... I'm kind of understanding what he's talking about. There's, like, this element of... What is it? It's like they're... Yeah, I think there's an assumption about what it is they're trying to achieve with Looksmaxxing, and it's not necessarily what you would assume. Like, they're just trying to be the most sexually attractive so they can get all the women. Like, there's something else going on here. That is kind of interesting. I mean, it's kind of clear when you look at that guy Clavicular as well. It's not just about trying to become attractive. There's... Yeah, it's almost like another version of transgenderism. Not that it's the same thing, but like the same thing that's behind transgenderism, I think, is behind this as well. Like wanting to be some other character.
no news source dared question if the androgenic clip may have been staged, like many of his other clip farming moments, for, that would tarnish the emotional salience of the narrative.
I will shove it. I will put this into your intestine, up into your stomach, through your mouth, into the fucking ether. You do not disrespect androgenic.
But the unwarranted hatred of Looksmaxxing, it's not purely emotional. There's a rational, evolutionary, advantageous mental mechanism at play. And it's the same psychological weaponry that emboldened the fat acceptance movement. So deceptive social signaling. You may have heard this example before, but notice how women will call overweight women like Lizzo beautiful. But if you say they look like Lizzo, instead of taking it as a compliment of their beauty, they get offended.
That's a good point.
Deep down, they never actually thought Lizzo was beautiful. Consciously or subconsciously, they are manipulating their competition in the sexual marketplace. If some women believe being fat is beautiful and physically align themselves with that belief, but the majority of men think otherwise, then the average woman gains a sexual advantage because she becomes more attractive by comparison. And we see analogous, mostly subconscious, I would say, psychological warfare play out in the Looksmaxxing world. It's rational from an evolutionary perspective to criticize Looksmaxxing because the more attractive the average person is, the less attractive you are, relatively speaking, and vice versa. So, hypocritically, the attempt to hinder others from Looksmaxxing is Looksmaxxing because stifling the improvement of others' looks makes your looks better by comparison. Again, much of these psychological games are subconscious because our evolutionary psychology is extremely intelligent. If people were aware that they were playing these games, they may feel inauthentic, they may feel guilty, they may suffer some cognitive dissonance, and it would decrease their propensity to fully reap the evolutionary advantages.
It's like you've really given up on the God point. Not that the God point was ever really anything of substance anyways, but it's like, oh, it's just a game and I gotta like play this game and compete. It's a really fucking sad way to live. And it's funny because his argument would be, oh, of course you don't want me to play the game because then it makes you play the game better. And it's like, let's just stop the game. Let's actually just consider what would be best for everybody. Because all of this competition goes nowhere. Okay. Like, think about it. You're a guy. What are you getting out of it? You're getting attention from women? Is that what you want? You're getting attention from other men? What is it that you're actually getting out of this whole game? None of it actually will be fulfilling because it's kind of like, it's like playing a game of chess and winning. Okay, you won a game. Now what? So what? It's not actually fulfilling. It's only because you're defining it that way. And while all that little game illusion thing is going on, there's an actual real world where there's an actual real economy where there's the price of oil, there's the price of bread, there's the price of electricity, there's water, there's the environmental degradation that we're causing. Those are very real things that when those things, become unstable, any sexual competition thing you're playing, it won't fucking matter. Like when you're literally just trying to survive, none of that stuff will matter anymore. And the problem is focusing on all this game stuff while we're just allowing the world, the system just to continue as it is. You see, it's like, it's totally insane. You're playing a game because somehow you have access to money in the system where you can play that game. But while you're distracted by that, the system is starting to implode and like clamp down on everybody. So it's like, but again, if you look at that point he was saying about God earlier, you have to convince yourself as that starting point initially to think, oh, it's all just a game. It's all just imagination. None of it matters. You have to be delusional.
Of playing this game. So really contemplate this for a moment. At the deepest level of your psyche, do you really think the top Looksmaxxing influencers online are more insecure than the average person? Of course, calling them insecure is the go-to criticism, but do you really believe that? Men who step outside societal boundaries and intentionally place themselves in a socially vulnerable position, accept that society will call them insecure and gay, and disclose to the world their makeup routine, they're insecure? Really? Like, compared to who? The haters?
Yeah, I can see his point, though. Like, they're willing to put themselves out there in the public eye and get attention. So, yeah, they're probably not as insecure in that sense as the average person. The average person would not be willing to do that. That's why most people don't really make a lot of social media content, because they're afraid of putting themselves out there. So I can definitely see that point that he's making. But again, then you look at the word insecure, and there's like an emotional version of that word, which is your feeling about yourself, versus like actual insecurity, which would be your access to money, food, resources. We just totally disregard all of that. So again, it's like, yes, in the media, in the quote average person's mind, they would judge the Looksmaxxer people as insecure or whatever, and they are also insecure themselves. So it's just a judgment. But all of it's irrelevant. None of that stuff matters, because both people are still existing at the behest of a system that is not designed to be best for anybody.
What else could be the epitome of insecurity besides obfuscating your insecurity by calling other people insecure to elevate your identity and degrade their identity virtually, like in the comfort of your stepmom's basement, cozy and protected from the natural ramifications of confrontational actions like these? And the lack of self-awareness here, it's understandable but simultaneously frightening. Insecurity is inherent to our biological mortal existence because survival and reproduction is never a certainty. Insecurity is a facet of our evolutionary design to ensure we seek evolutionary advantages.
It doesn't have to be that way. And nobody's actually evolving in any of this. No one's actually getting better. It's all a false version of evolution.
Insecurity is covertly laced within our every behavior. At its core, Looksmaxxing is simply an attempt to gain an evolutionary advantage, to maximize the chance of survival and reproduction. But so is having a job. Are you insecure?
It's increasing your ability to survive because you get attention, and therefore you get ad money and stuff like that, and donations and subscriptions and all that kind of shit. Sure. About reproduction, I don't know about that. Are any of these guys reproducing? Do they really want their responsibility of taking... Does the woman who wants to reproduce with them or the guy themselves want to take responsibility for effectively raising a child? That's the part everybody... It's easy to talk about evolution and say like, oh, it's about the drive to compete so I can reproduce. But what about actually supporting the next generation?
For having a job, neither working a job or looksmaxxing is mandatory for survival and reproduction, but when done skillfully, both certainly enhance your chances. One is simply more normalized than the other. This is the foundation of one of Looksmaxxer's most valid arguments. Improving your looks is completely logical in this societal game that we're playing, with a couple caveats, which we'll get into. But
I mean, I agree with that. Like, in the game that people play, it makes sense to be more attractive. And it is pretty obvious that the shit talking that a lot of people do about looksmaxxing is really just jealousy. It's judgment and jealousy, obviously. So it's funny because the whole looksmaxxing thing as an expression in humanity is just bringing all of that to the surface.
Really contemplate who's more insecure. Someone who is motivated to improve their looks, or someone who is complacent and has no desire to improve their looks. I don't think it's black and white. I think peak insecurity is reflected at both extremes. So pathological body dysmorphia at one end and toxic complacency at the other end. So eventually, whether it's in reference to your physique or your face, you must become content or you'll be perpetually trapped on the hedonic treadmill and eventually resort to extreme measures that sacrifice other facets of your well-being, just to get another dopamine hit from some sense of progression. This is one of the reasons why I consider it vital to diversify your dopamine sources. Invest all your dopamine in your body or your face. Their appearance mimics a drug that you continue to build a tolerance to, and you progressively need a greater and greater dosage just to feel something. But on the other end of the spectrum, many people are afraid to transform. Transformation evinces feelings of uncertainty because it threatens identity, especially facial transformations, because our face is so integral to most of our identities. So people who refuse to transform, they're generally more attached to their sense of self and wish to protect it at all costs rather than encourage its evolution. And many people misconstrue toxic complacency for confidence. They receive egoic validation from the inauthentic belief that they're already good enough, so they don't need to improve. So there's this delicate balance that we should strive to hone in on. Self-love and self-improvement, they're not mutually exclusive. You don't have to choose one or the other. It is indeed possible to hold multiple perspectives dynamically and then implement varying degrees of each depending on the circumstance. In fact, if you truly loved yourself, you wouldn't hide from or ignore your insecurities. You would embrace them because they are an intrinsic part of who you are. But you'd also strive to optimize yourself because if you love something, you want what's best for it. And this is exactly what looksmaxxing influencers do. They put their insecurities surrounding their appearance on display for the world to see and document their journey to mitigate them. So paradoxically, accepting and transparently disclosing your insecurities to others is one of the most secure actions you can perform. To me, many looksmaxxers actually seem more content with who they are. They're more secure. Clavicular, the most popular looksmaxxer to ever mog the world, explicitly states he's autistic, and he totally owns it. Is he insecure because he wears shoulder pads to increase his apparent shoulder width? Come on, his name is literally clavicular. It's derived from clavicle. Of course he uses every conceivable technique to lengthen the apparent width of his clavicle. My looksmaxxing character's name is Mandibulus, derived from mandible. Of course I chew mastic gum for hours every day to grow my...
Wow. I remember seeing that video a while back. And I didn't connect that it was this same guy. Interesting.
masseter muscles. What's hilarious is looksmaxxing has essentially always been socially accepted. It's just certain techniques that are arbitrarily considered worthy of castigation. Scent maxing, rubbing chemicals on your armpits that mask your pheromones, socially accepted. Hair maxing, manipulating the color, length, and style of your hair, socially accepted. Skin maxing.
I mean, like, to particularly talk shit about looksmaxxers, it is a bit hypocritical, obviously, because women wear makeup, guys try to dress. I mean, I don't, but you know, guys out there doing the whole sexual competition thing. You know, they dress a certain way. They shave and do their haircut all a certain way, and they wear certain clothing and their sneakers or their whatever fucking things fashion they wear. It's not like it's some new thing that these guys are doing. They're just doing the game that everybody's doing. It's nothing unique, actually. So he's got a fair point. Like, if you're looking at it in this limited context of everybody's playing a competition for like a sexual competition game, these guys aren't doing anything different than anybody else is doing. I mean, look how the lengths women go to like change their appearance to look more attractive. Now, why do guys need to do that? Good question. But it's all part of the game.
Killing billions of tiny microorganisms just to optimize your skin texture, socially accepted. But the moment a man applies makeup or attempts to, increase the overall volume of his zygomatic region through like trauma-induced collagen deposition, then we risk societal ostracization. Now, maybe your criticism is that Looksmaxxers are lacking balance. I agree. If you focus too much on looks, the returns are diminishing, and it can detract from improving the less polished parts of your life that give you a better ROI. But wait a minute, does Clavicular really think looks are at the very tippy top of the value hierarchy? What happened to the limb lengthening and double jaw surgeries he was going to get? He doesn't even seem interested in them now at all, because it was never about Looksmaxxing. It has always been about life maxing. Looksmaxxing is just a means to an end. Looksmaxxers are specialists. Becoming a specialist can help you life max. It grants you authority. It helps you accumulate financial resources. It can even make you famous.
Those are true things in our system. Absolutely true.
Should we criticize a hair transplant doctor for obsessing over hair? Should we criticize a dermatologist for obsessing over skin? Should we criticize a mechanic for obsessing over cars? Should we really make the assertion that the lives of specialists are out of balance? Or should you appreciate specialists because specialization maximizes collective competency? You can be a jack of all trades, and guess what? In their personal lives, many of the Looksmaxxers are, but even jacks of all trades acquire proficiency in those trades through the education from specialists. Look, especially in this era of social media, specialization is algorithmically and therefore financially optimal. Can you really blame someone for specializing in a niche? And guess what? You don't know the real person behind their online persona. When you go to a doctor, unless you know him personally, you just know he's an expert in the medical field. You have no idea what attributes he's optimizing in his personal life. If you are ever lucky enough to hang out with Androgenic, your mind will be blown. This guy is an expert in pharmacology, specifically compounds that improve cognitive function. We discussed extensively the nuances of my biohacking routine, the Natty Plus protocol, and compared and contrasted it with his personal biohacking philosophies, and he's passionate about philosophy in general. Ronan has literally watched every single kenosis video. Okay, our conversations had the totally opposite valence of his superficial character. This guy is constantly contemplating life, taking psychedelics to expand his mind, and he's highly aware of the limitations of superficial pursuits. He just wants to optimize every aspect of his being, including looks, and simply selected that particular attribute as an avenue to social media and business success. Can Looksmaxxing be detrimental? Of course. Anything taken to the extreme can be detrimental. Driving a car too fast can severely injure you. Even drinking too much water within a short duration can be fatal. So if your Looksmaxxing sacrifices other areas of your life, or if you neglect other personal development pursuits because you're beguiled into believing only looks matter, then yeah, it may be a net negative to your life. But if you treat Looksmaxxing as another skill to hone in your diverse catalog of skills, I agree, it's only logical. My favorite game of all time was RuneScape. My goal in RuneScape was to acquire the Questcape, and the more skills I raised to a higher level, the more quests I could complete. I live my life in the same way. And the most profound element of Looksmaxxing is that in order to become an elite Looksmaxxer, to really rise to the official World Chat rankings, you need far more than just good looks. Looksmaxxing, when pursued intelligently alongside the proper set of perspectives, can actually be an avenue towards self-actualization. And I hope this video and maybe future videos can provide you that set of
Yeah, it's also a total fucking distraction from anything that actually matters at all. It all makes logical sense in this very narrow view of who we are as human beings, where it's just about playing this game and trying to win this game and compete for resources. But like, what if everybody just stopped playing that game? Like, would we even know who we are and who we could be and what we could express as if we weren't worried about fucking optimizing our looks and our credit scores and our amount of attention we get from people? Like, what's the starting point of all of it? What is the starting point? So you can do what? So you can spend your entire life on this planet being known as an expert on psychogenic compounds and how to achieve the perfect jawline. Like, it's a total fucking waste of the most, such a gay word, the most precious thing, which is like life itself. And then it's gone, it's over. And then you die, and then you wake up and you go, oh shit, I fucking wasted the whole fucking thing. I missed the whole point. I was so distracted by, it's like what was the point he was saying about like insecurity? Why do we have to display whether we're secure or insecure? Why does it have to be an emotional thing? If I'm secure in myself, what does that mean? I like the way I look? Why? What value does it have? Oh, because somebody else likes the way I look. Okay. And what value is that? You know, it'd be one thing to, like, let's say we have a system. Everybody has the basics that they need. There's no poverty. There's no unnecessary suffering and like abuse and rape and all the extremely negative things, war, all this shit. People stressing their entire life over whether they can pay their bills, shit like that. Because really, like he was saying, if you become a specialist and you get a lot of attention, you can make money, and then people like you, and you get all that attention, and then your life's great. You've life maxed, but that's not life maxed. That's just you've experience maxed. You've maxed out some kind of experience that you believe is the only experience you can have. I mean, what else is there to say? It's really fascinating hearing him talk like that compared to that first video we watched. And then seeing that he fucking drowned himself in a lake after he went crazy, apparently. I mean, obviously we don't know what the whole story was. It's like trying to break out of the... It's very similar to the transgenderism thing, because it's like trying to break out of what you feel are the limits that have been put on you by being born into this world and not feeling like you fit in. But it's like not really seeing the whole picture as to why all of that exists like that. Not really understanding why. You know, it's like with the transgenderism thing. They want to kind of rebel against the social norms of gender and how you're allowed to express yourself. But not realizing just trying to rebel against it doesn't really solve the problem. Yes, there are a lot of limitations in this world, and we have a lot of limitations put on us, but we should live in a world where it doesn't fucking matter if you're a guy or a girl, what you want to fucking wear. Like, it could be a point of self-expression, but the self-expression currently is I'm just expressing that I don't like the way things are. I don't like the limits that other people have put on me. And underneath it, there's always some kind of traumatic experience, but also what is it? It's like some kind of experience where you felt limited, you felt misunderstood, but also underneath that, like a jealousy, insecurity, but not just insecurity over how you feel, like actual insecurity. Like you subconsciously, unconsciously know if you don't fight for survival, you will die. You won't have what you need. And that's the real problem. So going to the side of like rebelling against the standards and trying to set your own standards, it doesn't really solve the problem that's underlying why all of these other problems that you experience, why they're there in the first place. And when I was younger, like college age, because I really acutely felt a lot of just, the anxiety, I guess is a good word, but it's more like the angst, that kind of a thing. I felt that very acutely, and I'm sure a lot of people do. But it wasn't until college that I really started looking at, like, okay, why? Because before, being younger, like, teenager and so forth, it's like you're kind of under the control of your parents. So it's like, well, because I don't have any choice in the matter, right? But then you become an adult, and it's like, okay, why do I feel like so shitty all the time? Why does the world not seem to actually care about me or anybody, really? And that's when I started looking into, like, okay, there's got to be something that explains this. Got to be something going on. And so, fortunately, then I started studying destiny at one point, and it just became very clear, like, oh, we have an entire system that we're all accepting, and we're participating in it. We're keeping it running. So, like, even the person who rebels, like the transgender person, for example, who rebels against the societal norms of gender, but they still go to work, and they still do all the things that anybody else normally does. Just like this guy here, he's still making money on social media, which means people have to have their phones and have their attention sucked into that, because if nobody was paying attention, he wouldn't be able to make any money. He wouldn't even be able to live that expression that he feels like is important to him. So it requires everybody to be stuck in a sort of just hypnosis for you to matter, for you to feel important, for you to get what you need. You need other people to basically be stuck in some form of hypnosis. So that's why I see it's like there's a level where you can just judge it and be like, oh, this guy's retarded, blah, blah, blah. And, but I do understand the points he's making of most people would judge these guys as insecure when in fact they're kind of brave. If you look at it in the context of the system that exists, I mean, they're putting themselves out there. They're taking a risk. They're trying. That doesn't mean I agree with what they're doing or their solution, but I think the average person would be, just ask a random average person to go up on a stage in front of like 1,000 people and talk. They would be petrified. Right? Get a normal person and ask them to give a speech in front of 30 of their friends. They'll be terrified. So I definitely see his point that to judge these guys as just totally insecure, like, yes, they are insecure, but not any more than anybody else is. So it's easy to stand in a point of judgment, but what you judge is something that exists out there in reality, of which you're an active co-creator in this, and you're equal to it. You're one with all of this. So when you judge it, you don't solve it. You don't offer any real solution. You just stand in judgment of it, but not realizing. It's like, for example, take somebody who's like a murderer, right? And let's say there's some reasoning as to why they murdered somebody, right? Not like meaning like a rational reason. I just mean You know, maybe they were like heavily abused as a kid or something. Okay, so they have these behavior patterns. They get angry and then they kill people. Okay, not justifying it, but just let's look self-honestly about why it occurs. Because generally speaking, people who are just fine and never had any problems in their life from money or abuse, they're probably not going to go around murdering people. So then this person murders somebody, and then we judge them as like, oh, this terrible person. So then, okay, we get the satisfaction of like, I'm a good person. I wouldn't do that. They're bad. I recognize they're bad. But the thing that caused them to do it, we don't do anything about that. And it's very similar to that interview we listened to with the president of Signal, when she was saying how, you know, blaming ChatGPT for these people. What was the point? They were like using ChatGPT to plan like murders or things like that, you know. And then people saying, well, that's why we should make it so that ChatGPT reports anything like that. But then again, that's a slippery slope, because that means it's like you're opening the door that everything you do, it's like they have permission to look at it and store that information because they might need to use it later, report on it. And so her point was just, okay, but we've had school shootings for a long time before ChatGPT. Why are they happening? You know, and she had ideas about gun control and different things, which you could agree or disagree with on her particular ideas about what would solve it. But the problem is we don't actually solve it. We don't solve the problem. So it's the same thing. These guys are not solving a problem. They're just trying to play the game. And for anybody to be like standing in judgment of them, but they're also just playing the game at whatever level they have been educated or their experiences have supported them to be able to play it at. It's like the pot calling the kettle black, right? Or, sorry, African American, as they say. Right? It's just no solution. So it's cool because I can empathize with the guy in terms of what they're seeing, but obviously they have no solution whatsoever. But it is really crazy to then look at that, and then now it's 4 months after that video was filmed, and he goes crazy and drowns himself in a lake. So I think, or I can see a lot more things like this are going to happen. I'm not saying it's specific to the Looksmaxxing people, but it's like they're being very extreme in what they're doing. But the more extreme you get, the more you're inviting the extreme in everything of your life. So it only serves to amplify all the problems. Yeah, sad, but it's the system. All right. I think I'll leave it at that tonight, y'all. We didn't finish listening to The Fall of God, but maybe we'll do that on another stream. Lots of points to consider. That's also the point, too, is with these Looksmaxxing people, for example, they're making a lot of assumptions about what reality is. And then it's like, now you have these base assumptions, and now it's like, okay, so then now that's why I have to Looksmax or become transgender or whatever the thing is, because you think you already know how everything works. So you start making logical conclusions based on that. So everything he said is logical in the sense of how the system works, but they're based on assumptions that aren't valid. Because when you start, especially if you study Destiny, you'll see there's so much more context to reality than simply, oh, well, it's evolution. And because of evolutionary pressures, we have a competition for sexual reproduction. It's like, no, that's a bullshit story that you've been sold. That's all it is. Yeah, I'm just reading the comments. Yeah, I definitely think the transgender thing is the same as Looksmaxxing. It's no different. Extreme positivity and then extreme depression. Yeah, exactly. It's like I'm life maxing, but then I kill myself. How do you square that circle? All right. I'll see you guys tomorrow night. Have a good one. Don't Looksmaxx. All right. See y'all.